expansion of the expansions is really what the word heaven is supposed to mean. It means the expansion of the expansions. There's no measurement of that. So Hashemayim, in the Hebrew term for heaven, which is translated in the singular, is never put in the singular in Hebrew. Once we put the I am on the end, Shemayim, that automatically means plural. So it's never heavens.
Okay.
And it's the expansion of expansions.
That's blowing my mind already. I love it because creation never stops.
It never stops.
Ongoing.
It never stops.
How does that correlate with the prayer that I think is called the Shema? Where it's
Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad. Most people don't like saying Yehovah, they say Adonai. But Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad. And it translates with that perfectly. Hear, O Yisrael, hear, O people of God. The Lord our God, the Lord our gods, because it says Yehovah Elohim, Yehovah Echad, meaning God is one. In all of his expansions, in all of his manifestations, in all of his appearances, in all of the depth, as well as the expansion, is still the oneness.
So he's both Elohim, which is plural.
And
in his plurality, he's still one.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of a dichotomy or a paradox.
Absolutely. But listen to this one. When we say that the Most High first in the beginning made the heavens and the earth, and he called it the first day, we always say the first day. But in the Hebrew, it never says the first day. It says Yom Echad, meaning that in the time and in the day of oneness. Now when we say the first day, we say Yom Rishon, meaning the first day, meaning Sunday. Or Yom Sheni, the second day, or the third day, or then the Shabbat day. But in the Bible, that first day is not called Yom Rishon, the first day. It's called Yom Echad, meaning oneness.
You just put some pieces together for me. You just connected some dots for me. That's beautiful.
That's what it means, the time of the oneness of the all.
So again, people shouldn't be looking in the mirror and being under this kind of a self-delusion that they are God.
No, it should not be intoxicating nor delusional.
Yeah.
It should be inspirational to the capacity that you are only limited to the capacity that you limit yourself, but not to the arrogant sense that you are God and you're condescending, or you can use that arrogant, delusional explanation the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, which many do.
I tell people who get carried away with this notion. A lot of people hear, these scriptures and they say, oh, well, God lives in me and I was made in God's image, therefore I am God. And there are people running around saying that today. And I tell them, when you can create a planet, when you can create an entire species, when you can create a solar system, come talk to me. And I'll recognize you as a God. But until then, you're a human who has connection with the divine creator. Right?
That is supposed to be the most humbling statement and experience one can have. Humbled in the sense that you submit to the Almighty, not that you are equal with in terms of the Creator. It only associates you with the most powerful energy and source in the universe to be a part of that, to be an aspect of that, to be an expression of that, but not to be that.
Is that what Jesus meant? And I don't know how familiar you are with the New Testament when he said, that I am in my Father and my Father is in me and I am in you and you are in me.
I can identify with that and I know that very well. And I would say that's a perfect, explanation of that. That's what he meant. People have misinterpreted it, but he meant that to be just that he was an aspect and part of what the Father was. And that, just like he was that, his disciples had the right to be that as well. So it wasn't an exclusive identity that he was talking about. It was an inclusive experience. That just as I and my Father are one and you and I are one, we are all one. And that oneness.
That oneness.
That oneness.
Going back
and that was the beginning.
Hear thou, O Israel.
The Lord our God, the Lord
is one.
And so when we put the English in it, again we put the Lord, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And it sounds again like the singular. But when we say it in the Hebrew, Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad, then we understand the forces and the powers of what we see manifested through the deity of Yehovah, the eternal one, the omnipresent, omnipotent one, then we realize that all that is in a oneness of cooperation, harmony, and cohesiveness, which is the oneness.
And for all of my practicing Christians out there, Jesus also said that this prayer that Rabbi Kohein just said so beautifully in Hebrew, the Shema, is one of the two things that Jesus said are the two most important scriptures in the Old Testament.
Absolutely.
That prayer and the other prayer is love thy neighbor as thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two
that
syllables prayers
of,
that Jesus said
yes,
are the most important prayers.
And these again, Jesus being a Hebrew, being an Israelite, his statements are well founded and grounded in those principles. As was just stated, he said, "Ve'ahavta et Yehovah Elohecha, u'lekol levaveka, u'lekol nafsheka, u'lekol ma'odeka, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might." And that is the most supreme thing, because you cannot love God without loving your fellow creature and without loving yourself. So he said, upon this is all the scripture, because all the scripture is based upon is loving your creator and loving your neighbor. That's why we break the 10 Commandments up. 1 to 5 is about loving God, and 6 to 10 is about loving your neighbor. And that's why I said it's boiled down to these two things, loving God and loving your neighbor. That's the whole 10 Commandments.
Y'all just got a sermon. That's so rich. That's so rich. You just gave us so much spiritual food. Thank you. That is nourishment to the body, the heart, the soul, the mind, the entire being. Thank you for that.
You're quite welcome.
Ooh,
my pleasure.
All right, so now I got to do my due diligence and
Yes.
get back to our mission
Yes.
here. All right, within the context of your personal experience, your lived experience as a rabbi, as a spiritual teacher, as an expatriate or repatriate, however you want to refer to that, both, right, here in Ghana, Rabbi Kohein.
Yes.
From your vantage point, can you talk to us a little bit about what's hurting black men?
I say that as the first expression because it's not one answer, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you for, first of all, let me thank you for being inspired to ask that question, because very rarely black men ask that question under normal circumstances, except they're in the couch of a therapist or sitting in the chair of a therapist, or some incident is taking place where they have to be counseled, but not objectively, to really get to the source of the answer and the pain. When you say what is hurting black men, it's a multiplicity of experiences and emotions that, for the most part, I'm not sure that every black man or many black men even understand what's hurting them. They just know they hurt. And to define hurt is not always easy, because always the sources of pain for the black man over the last half a millennium have not always been evident. They are the evident sources that has caused pain about not being able to live out the full potential of oneself as a man, and what has been defined in past generations as a man's responsibilities. I say that because it looks like we are in a transition in this universe, in this millennium that we're coming into, of what defines a man and what defines a woman. But let me base mine on my experience of having come up in an era and a time where I thought the lines of definition were very clear. A man being able to be responsible for himself, his own destiny, be responsible for his family, be responsible in his family, and being able to be a master of his own destiny. And that the black man, unlike most other species of human beings, have had to come up against more systematic discrimination and obstacles and stumbling blocks than the average man. And the pain of knowing that this has been consistent and contrived systematically to deny the black man in particular the ability to pull himself up by his own bootstrings, or allow his character to master his destiny, or his hard work to be the results of his rewards, has been a very painful experience. Naturally, within the natural sense of nature, a man likes to feel like he can not only provide but protect. and that and being able to provide and protect, his dignity is assured. And being denied the ability to be able to provide and protect, it breaks down the dignity within inside of a man. And part of a man's orientation is to be proud. You know, whether it's right or wrong, or whether it was stereotypical, we look at women's role in the past to be more humble than a man. Women have surrendered so many of their aspirations, so much of themselves, to make the family unit work. And that has been at the price of saying that the man can preserve his pride and his dignity, sometimes at the expense of the woman surrendering hers. So when the man is brought into a position of having no pride and no dignity, it's like he's worthless. And when a society has no shame and has no camouflage in defining a black man as worthless, and you can't do anything about that, then that is something that eats away at the very soul of the being. So I think that is the source, a lot of the pain of what black men feel. Whether we're talking about the relationship between the black man and the black woman, the relationship between the black man and his children, the relationship between the black man and his workplace and his job, the relationship between black men and black men, it has a way of stemming back to having been denied the self-dignity and the self-pride. And then it carries itself out in so many different other forms in terms of relationships. Because how can you have any healthy relationship when the relationship with your own self-worth has been damaged? And I think that has been the core. When black men were defeated in battle, whether defending or surrendering themselves to other invaders of our privacy in Africa, and captured and sold as human beings, and then brought into a society where their humanness was institutionally taken away from them, and the dignity supported institutionally within a land that had laws that said that a black man had no rights by law to be able to take his oppressor up for any of the violations on his human dignity and character, and that he literally had no rights, that he was worthless. And this is what we have to go back to the experience in, that what is a man with no worth? And then at any given time, he can be told that to his face at any given point in his life, whether he is a 20-year-old or 40-year-old or 60-year-old. Imagine a man 70 years old, family, grandchildren, and one day a random somebody who may be less worth than him tell him he's a nobody, he's worthless, and there's a whole society that backs that up. Then that is something that I think is still at the root and the source of the pain that black men feel. And it spells out negatively in his relationships across the board. As I said, with his own self, with black man, the black man, black man, the black woman, black man, the black family, black man to society. When I look back in the 1960s and realized that 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, we saw men marching with Martin Luther King with a sign simply saying, "I am a man. Treat me with dignity." And then we fast-paced that up, you know, to slogans like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Right here in the 21st century.
Just the fundamental acknowledgement of our value as human beings.
Yes, yes.
We're still fighting for that.
Still fighting for that. Over 150 years after a piece of paper says we're free and we're equal. And now look at what we're dealing with, you know, today, that the question that in a land that does not purport itself to be homophobic, xenophobic, racial, a land that says that it is the land of the free and home of the brave, stands on a constitution, stands on a mountain to police the world based on principles of democratic rule, would still not having perfected in over 200 years how to have a society that respects its own citizenry. Not even talking about fighting its borders to stop further immigration, but how it has not found the formula to respect its citizenry that has generations of rights to be respected as citizens, and to be based upon race that is further castrates symbolically the black man who was seen as endangered. The disappearance of the black man from the community and from the society, with over 200 black men being locked up in penitentiaries in the United States of America.
200.
2 million.
2 million.
2 million, excuse me. 2 million males being locked up in a prison society. What has each one of those males represented to the families they're absent from? And the communities they're absent from. All those fathers, all of those sons, all those cousins,
all of
sons.
those would-be husbands.
Absolutely. That is traumatized the whole community. And even the community that's free and can't do nothing about the injustice that has locked up that proportion of itself is further traumatized.
Tax-paying citizens.
Absolutely.
Tax-paying citizens.
Absolutely.
Who can't protect themselves on the streets, that their money goes to pay.
Absolutely.
Their money goes to pay the police officers who harass and jail their sons. Their money goes to pay the judges who do not practice justice when it comes to their families and their children. Tax-paying citizens.
And their money goes to pay the lawyers and the legal aides that continue to railroad them. And the prisons.
And the prisons, all of it. So it's like we're paying for your own subjugation.
And to be aware of that. To be ignorant is one thing. Some people say ignorance is bliss, but to be aware of that, to be conscious of that, and still be powerless to do anything about it, where does that pain go?
Yeah.
Where does that trauma go?
Yeah.
It still is there. It doesn't evaporate. It doesn't disappear. It's internalized. And it's pain. That you would have one of the highest rates of death. That would be hypertension. That's that covered up pain. Heart attack. That's that covered up pain. Depression. That's that covered up pain. Those who are not in prisons or in mental institutions or on programs or on prescription drugs.
Or
for that
street
pain.
drugs.
Or street drugs, yeah. For that pain.
Yeah.
Have to be self-induced or prescribed to hide that pain, to cover that pain that appears every morning that the sun rises and the drugs wear off.
Yeah, and it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away.
It's around the clock.
It's recycled.
It's with you in your sleep.
And it's become generational.
Yeah, yeah, and it's become generational. And it's cellular.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
I mean, there is research that shows that we have cellular memory, and the traumas of our ancestors live within us.
Absolutely.
Which is why when people do what I just did earlier today, and they go back to, these slave dungeons, and they go and they see that door of no return, and they experience it, they just break down and sob.
Uncontrollably.
That was me a couple hours ago.
Not planned. I mean, it just overcomes you.
Yeah,
literally.
Literally overcomes
Yes.
you. Yeah, yeah. I want to talk about where this intersects with faith and spirituality, particularly in the forces of love and hate. And, I believe that love is stronger than hate.
Yes.
And I had a conversation with someone recently who was talking about the power of that love was the power of our survival as a people.
That's true.
For those, there were millions and millions who never even made it onto the slave ships. They died in those dungeons. They died on the way to those dungeons. There were millions who didn't make it through the Middle Passage, and then there were, again, millions who didn't make it through the generations to make it to 2019. And someone asserted to me their concept or their idea that it was love. It was that love that was so akin to the desire for survival. It wasn't just about survival for survival's sake, right? Talk to me about love and love's power to overcome hate and what that means in terms of us, of where we are now and what we've been through historically.
Well, I like to say that I believe in that. I believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe. That nothing is more powerful than the two energies of love and hate, and love is superior. Because energy is energy, and what drives us in this world, can be a number of things, but there's no force in this universe more powerful than the force of love. And I think that is one of the things that has allowed, and it's going to be strange for me to say this as a Hebrew, but I think that is what made many black men and black people of African descent in America grab on to the doctrine of Christianity, because it was preached in a manner that Jesus was about love, and that one had to use love to overconquer an enemy that did not have the power to confront physically.
That's what Martin Luther King's entire platform was predicated on, right?
Absolutely. It was a practical computation that we did not have the power to fight the level and the degree of hate that was being perpetrated against us, because we were not equal in that hate. And the only thing that we can use, the most powerful weapon at our dispense, was love. And love was more powerful than that hate. And if we used it well and wise, we can still overcome our enemy with our weapon, because our weapon would be love, and it's a safe weapon to use. And I think whether you're using it through the principles of Christianity, whether it be Martin Luther King or Jesus, or using it as a human capacity and a human realization, which cuts across the lines of all religion, because it's there in Islam, it's there in the Hebrew or Judaism. But I think that as human beings, when we come to grips with the fact that there's power in the capacity to forgive and love, and that power and that capacity is overcoming. And that has been one of the best and the greatest salvation methods that has been able to be used as a tool of black people.
And it's not a cop-out.
It's not a cop-out.
It's not.
It's a strength.
It
takes strength.
Right.
It takes strength and endurance and fortitude to be able to employ that. That's not a weak man or weak woman's choice.
Yeah.
In fact, it's the stronger choice, because one would be given into the instincts of reactionism, and the instincts of retaliation, and the instincts of revenge, which could have been catastrophic more than the catastrophe that was committed against us in the first place. It could have been a recipe for annihilation.
Absolutely.
And so that was a choice for survival, and it was a wise choice. And I think that it is still a viable weapon. I know that having come through the 60s era, and I remember the argument between the younger Stokely Carmichael and Dr. King. I said because they were both young when you look at the exact ages.
Oh, yeah.
But the argument was that not that Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, was against nonviolence, but he felt, contrary to Dr. King, that it should be preached to our people as a strategy, not as an ideology. In other words, your enemy should never know that you could never be violent, or you could never be retaliatory.
Right.
He should always have in the back of his mind that you have choices. You know. But in that sense, I think that, again, I wasn't, in the black community in that time. I was more of an admirer of Malcolm X, Haj Malik Shabazz, than I was of Dr. King. It was in my latter years, and upon serious reflection, that I got to appreciate the strategies of Dr. King, that it was the strategy of a strong man, and that our choices in leadership should have not been dichotomous. We didn't have to choose one over the other. We could have embraced them both.
Yeah.
And that would have been ours to our strength
in
embracing them both, which most of us do now. But at the time, we were almost being forced into which one do you choose to follow, believe, or adhere to.
There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to love first, but I have a pistol just in case.
Absolutely. That's right. And so, actually, it's ironic that our police officers, one of the synonyms that they used to be known for, were peace officers.
Exactly. That's right.
Absolutely.
Right. I still use that too.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be a great invocation.
That's the reason why I still use it.
For invocation.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I still say that love on every level, where would our personal relationships be without the real principle of love? Every time a man or a woman violates their relationship to each other, where would that relationship be if it acted on the moment of the violation, not the moment of love and forgiveness? So wherever aspect we choose to apply it to, it has served us to the better rather than the worse. And it brings us into a better moment rather than a worse moment.
So for our audience members out there, any of you who have ever fallen into this belief system or been told that the whole idea of using love as a weapon or love as a strategy is only because it's a cop-out, or it's the indoctrination of white European people who indoctrinated us with Christianity just so that they could take advantage of us as a people, I want you to know that no matter how it's been misused or misrepresented, that love is a spiritual force.
Absolutely.
What you're saying, it transcends religion. It goes beyond all periods of time to the very beginning, to the core of who we are,
Yes.
to the core of who our Creator is. And so my last name is Love, Dr. Kohein.
Oh.
It is not my family name. It is my chosen name.
Oh, excellent. Very good.
And the reason it's my chosen name is because it embodies my philosophy. And my philosophy is our God is love.
Yes.
He created us in love.
Yes.
Our purpose for being here is love.
Yes.
And when we leave this mortal coil and return back to our Creator, we are going back to love.
Yes.
That is my entire cosmology right
Well,
there.
let me shake your hand on that. I love that. Because I just want to qualify it again.
Yeah.
Love is not just a powerful force. My idea is love is the most powerful force in this universe. The most powerful force in this universe.
All right.
Yes.
I think that's a great place to wrap up this interview.
Yes.
Thank you so much
You're quite welcome.
for sharing your heart, your mind, your life, your experience, your precious, precious time. I get so emotional. You guys know me by now.
Well, I thank you
tear up
so
over
much
everything.
for this mission and work that you're on.
Thank you.
Because I'm sure it is also a healing process to those who participate in this interview and the way you ask these questions. And we need to go into this. This is our time. And we cannot come into our time without healing ourselves. And we can't heal without acknowledging that there's some hurt and there's some pain that we must work through, get through, and overcome. And to get to our real reality that's awaiting us all.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm happy to be doing the work. God bless you. Thank you everyone for tuning in for another episode of Black Men Speak. We'll see you on the next time around.